Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Committee of Adjustment hearing meeting. Welcome to staff, the public, and as well as the members of the committee. Are there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, a motion to accept the agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Noble, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the Committee of Adjustment hearing agenda of Monday, June 14th, 2021. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to ratify the minutes for the Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes, May 25th, 2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes of May 25th, 2021. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to minor variance MV-10 2021. Motion moved by Councillor Manley, seconded by Councillor Wensink. It is recommendation of the Planning Department that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application MV-10 2021 as submitted. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start sharing my screen, so if you read the package, you'll know that the first minor variance is for Gilles Lambert. The purpose of the application is, again, for some reason, there's 3 in a row now. So for some reason, again, the purpose of the application is to allow for an accessory storage building for residential use to be built before the main building, which would be, in this case, a single family dwelling. I was asked at the last Committee of Adjustment meeting to see what our options were in this case where we do not want to get stuck with buildings on properties with no house and like how to manage that. So basically I did a little research here via minor variance. So the problem is with the minor variance, it's not like, for example, a severance where you can impose a condition and then they have 1 year to fulfill the condition and it only gets approved after. So with the minor variance, the issue with that is that if the Committee of Adjustment passes the minor variance, it gets passed this evening. So there's no time period to accommodate for those conditions. So the important thing again here is that when we present, and that's not the case for everywhere, but when North Glengarry, when me or Kesha, we present those kind of application, it's because it's really for those particular reasons. So it's really because there's 2 main reasons. The first one is mostly because someone wants to build a house in the future or in the next couple of years because they live far away, for costs, because of delays, whatever, they want to start for storage purposes, they want to start with the storage building before. So in this case, well, technically we're not allowed to do that. So we pass the minor variance because the use is already permitted. The accessory is already permitted. It's just the timing that's different. So we just pass the minor variance. The only situation is like we had a couple months ago where an owner owns 2 properties adjacent to each other. So he uses the same property as one property. When he wants to build a garage, an accessory building on the neighboring property, well, technically he's going to use it as an accessory use to his single family dwelling. But because it's on a different parcel, a different lot, technically he cannot build that accessory storage there. So we pass the minor variance to allow it there, so that he can build a garage on that property, even though he lives on another one. So if he ever sells the property in the future, people can build a house and keep going with the accessory storage building, sorry. So I guess I'm just proposing or giving the ideas of what other townships do around or what options we have. So there's technically 4 things we could do. The first thing is, instead of doing minor variances like we do, we could pass an actual zoning bylaw amendment. So in this case, what we do is, instead of just having the accessory use as an actual accessory use to the main building, you pass a zoning amendment to allow the accessory use to be a main building. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just, instead of being a variance, instead of being a minor variance, it's an actual zoning amendment where you add the use to the permitted use in the zoning bylaw. So that's another way to do it. At the end of the day, it's pretty much the same thing, but I guess a zoning bylaw has more teeth than just a minor variance, I guess. Second option is that's what, I guess that's what other townships would do, where someone would want to build a building like that, and they don't really know if they want to build a house. They just have the intention of building a garage on the property. So what they do in this case is they explain that the house has to be built in the next 5 years or whatever, and they do pass the minor variance. But before the minor variance, they get into, it's called a development agreement with the landowner. So they basically tell the owner, you have to enter into this agreement with the township, and it gets registered on title. So technically, he has like whatever, 3 years, 4 years to do his house. If he does not, that the township is allowed to bring him to court and to fight this. So technically, the township would ask that the garage would be demolished in this case because he did not respect the development agreement that he had with the township. So that's option number 2. A little bit more paperwork, but I guess more precise, I guess more to the point. Option number 3 is, I was not discouraged, but that did not seem like a viable option. It's technically what's called a temporary use bylaw. So these bylaws are usually used for people who want to have like an in-law suite on their property, and they don't know for how long. So they technically pass a temporary use bylaw. It gets registered on the property, and it's good for 3-5 years. And I think you can go up to 10 years for these. But from like, I don't have much experience with these bylaws. The only experience I have with those is that it gets forgotten again, and the temporary use bylaw technically becomes a full-time just zoning bylaw. So that's an option I was not discouraged to use for these cases, but they're a little bit more complicated to keep track. And the option number 4 is to just keep doing what we're doing right now. So basically, we try to ensure the more we can that it's safe to do that. So that's kind of what we do. If someone just wants to build a garage on a property, we tell them, no, you can't. You have to have like a valid reason to build a garage before the house. And that's why we pass the minor variance instead of the zoning bylaw. They're called like safe cases, where we kind of know the people, they're from here, they have the actual house plans already drawn, they have the site plan, everything's ready to go. It's just for some minor reasons they may want to start with the garage. So these are kind of the 4 options that we have. So I just wanted to throw that on the table. I can start the presentation now for the first minor variant. Yeah, go ahead.
Questions. I'd be just a little concerned going in doing a zoning amendment on that kind of where we wouldn't have complete control over it. I really do want to see a time frame, time limit for building a house. It's easy to say, I'm going to build a house in a certain period of time, and then you just walk away from it, and you have a garage on this property that's all you really wanted, and everybody forgets about it, right? So I definitely want to see a timeline on these. I don't care if it's even if it's as long as 5 years, but I would like to see some kind of timeline attached when we do these in the future. Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to agree with you. The development agreement sounds like a good idea. We'd obviously have to do a little more looking at it, but that sounds like it might be sort of the most tight, if I can say that for lack of a better term. And then there's a mechanism to reverse the build as well if everything doesn't go the way that it was proposed.
Yeah. Councillor Wensink.
I agree with the minor variances as you've been doing, because again, we're still in a pandemic. There's so many uncertainties about the cost of construction materials, interest rates are changing. It's hard to plan for someone who's building right now, and you're giving us each individual situation, it's unique, and you're giving us your best advice based on your knowledge and experience. So I'm comfortable with leaving it the way it is until this pandemic is over.
Any further questions or comments? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue, Jacob.
Okay, so if I can propose, Mr. Mayor, maybe I'll I'll see what the exact process would be for the development agreement, and maybe we can just have some kind of a, like, for depending on the case, as Councillor Wensing said, if it's really a slam dunk. But I can definitely check into that deeper if the Committee of Adjustment wishes to, for sure. Yeah.
Nope, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. Good. So I guess I will move on with the actual report here. I will share my screen. All right, can we all see this?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So just, I guess a little heads up before we start. This one was, it's for, as I mentioned, it's for Gilles Lambert, minor variance 10-2021. It was advertised and it was discussed, it was applied for before that whole discussion happened. So this is a minor variance, just like we did the last couple of weeks for Mike Joron. So it's exactly the same process. There's no agreement or whatever. It's solely a minor variance to allow for, like I said, the other building to be built before. So the owner, as I said, Gilles Lambert, I think in my report that you have, I made a little mistake. It's only my second one in 2021. Sorry about that. But I think I have his address wrong. So Monsieur Lambert, in this case, and it's a little bit important to know, it's just because he doesn't live here. He actually lives in La Prairie, Quebec, which is close to like Brossard, Candiac area, just south of Montreal. So he does not actually live in the township. He's from here, but he doesn't live here right now. The location of the property is 19510 Kenyon Concession Road 1. OP designation is Rural District. The zoning is rural. So this is just a big view of the township here. You have Apple Hill here, the lake, and Kenyon Concession Run runs here, and it's just where Kenyon Concessions turn north-south there. It's on that little edge of the road, more precisely right here. So Monsieur Lambert actually owns the 3 lots here. The only lot that's affected or that's proposed is this middle lot here. So he's proposing to build a garage right here. So the purpose of the application, seek relief from zoning bylaw to permit the accessory storage building for residential use to be constructed prior to the main building. And in this case, it would be a single family dwelling. So that's a quick site plan that Monsieur Lambert drew just to show what the plans are. So just like, again, this was done before. The plan is to build a house in 2022. So the plans are to really build a house very soon. He was intending to build this year, but with costs and whatnot, 2022, want to build a garage right now. So that's why this minor variance came here. So the image just has to be flipped technically. North is on your right side on the image right here, okay? So the middle lot consists of 0.92 acres, currently vacant lands. There's wood on the property. As I mentioned, he intends to build a single family dwelling on the property. That's the garage here. So the proposed garage, this is just an accessory building. So it's just a vacant storage garage building to mainly store things while he's going to be building his house next year. As you can see, a little bit smaller than the last few ones we did. So this one would be 24 by 30. And it's got a little second story here like this. The building where it's proposed to be built, just going back at my little site plan right here. So we're asking for the minor variance to build it before, but besides that, all the setbacks will be met. So rear yard, front yard, all the sides, the height, everything is okay. So there's no other issues with the garage. It's really just because he wants to build a house before. So it's not a location issue at all. He will apply for a building permit if this passes this evening. He intends to start soon, so that's why we're passing this now. This is the entrance. So the road is actually like we're looking north here. Since Monsieur Lambert bought the property, it's been cleaned a lot. We already issued like as you see there was an entrance already. We already issued the civic number for the entrance. Through the 911 Emily project. So it's a vacant property, but we issued the civic number. So it's a lot cleaner, but if you look at the picture here, so the garage would be like further down the driveway here, and the house would be in the woods a little bit on the right here. So it's all via the same entry, but just one next to each other, basically a little bit deeper down on the property. The 4 tests here, so pretty much the same as the other ones. Does it comply with the official plan? Well, in this case, rural district does permit residential properties. It does allow for accessory uses to go with that residential dwelling. So it's all compliant with the official plan. And I believe I did put, yeah. So that's a shot of the official plan. So as you can see here, the line that you see is the boundary. So this is actually South Glengarry. That's why it's white. All of this here, all the gray is all rural district. So as you can see, the surrounding areas are mostly all rural residential properties. There's some wood, there's a little bit of floodplain up here, but it's really in the rural area. So it is desirable and appropriate for the area. Sorry. Zoning bylaw. So that's our zoning layer here. So as you can see, pretty much the same thing. This is South Glengarry here, but all in North Glengarry, it's all rural. So again, it does meet the intent and the purpose of the zoning bylaw. Same thing here, 24 by 30 is a permitted use and it as an accessory to a single family dwelling. Sorry, the third one was deemed suitable and desirable for the surrounding areas. Well, yes, just based on the fact that most of the properties are rural residential already. And the last one is it minor in nature? So again, we consider this minor in nature just because the use is permitted. We're just looking at flipping a little bit the time frame for Monsieur Lambert here. So based on the 4 tests, planning staff is in the opinion that the applicant's request variance to the zoning bylaw requirement can be considered minor, desirable, and appropriate, meets the intent of zoning bylaw and the official plan. And it is the recommendation of the planning department that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance MV 10-2021 as submitted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. I'll ask the committee if there are any questions. Councillor Manley.
Yes, just a comment or whatever. I drove by the property there on the weekend, and he has done a lot of work on that property. It is beautiful, and it will make a beautiful addition to have a new home in there for sure. So I'm all for this moving ahead or whatever. I think it's a great move.
And,
okay, thank you.
I know Gilles is watching. He watches all the meetings, so he'll be glad to hear that. Yeah.
It's awesome. Any other further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minor variance? Motion is carried. There we go. Okay, moving on to MV 12-2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Madden. This is a recommendation of the Planning Department that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application MV 12-2021 as submitted. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, I will share my screen. All right. We're good?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so this one, minor variance MV-12-2021. The owner, Laura and Doug Kivitz. Doug is actually on the meeting. The location of the property, so they live on that same property, 21-280 Crooked Road in Dalkeith. OP designation, in this case, agricultural resource lands, and the zoning is general agriculture. So this, again, a big shot. So you see Alexandria at the bottom, Glen Robertson, Dalkeith. So it's in the middle of those three villages there. More precisely right here. So Monsieur Kivitz lives right here, and this is the farm here. So we're discussing this property right here, right? So the purpose of the application in this case, it's not to allow for storage to be built before the dwelling, so it's great. This one here is to actually seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw 39/2000 to permit a farm building. So in this case, it's a livestock facility. It's an addition to permit to be built closer than the minimum distance separation to type A land use. In this case, type A land use just mean less sensitive. So it's just neighboring single family dwelling. As determined by the MDS2 formula, as per implementation guideline 43 of the MDS document. So the required minimum livestock barn setback, the distance from the calculation comes out at 507 feet. So technically those calculations in the MDS2 means that the new addition that Mr. Kivitz is adding onto his existing, the existing livestock facility should be built at 507 feet, but it's actually only proposed to be built at 412 feet. So it's a variance of 97 feet. All right, so as you can see here, so this is the existing, I think I have a better one right here. There we go. So as you can see here, we have an existing livestock facility, okay, right here. So that's existing, that's what they're now. Doug wants to build an addition. As in the next slide, you'll see dates, but the dates are not correct. So we want to build the addition as soon as possible. So he wants to build this addition here. So a milk parlor and an actual livestock facility right here. So that's the proposed addition, and that's the existing. Right, so I'm just going to go back here. So based on our calculations, he should be at 507 feet. All right, so that's from the edge of the new proposed addition, he should be 507 feet. But as you can see in the proposed addition, we're coming even with the front of the livestock facility here. So the front of the barn, which already exists, is only at 410 feet from this neighbor right here, the neighbor across the road. I have his address, 20, what's his address? Anyway, it doesn't really matter, 21-285. So that's the owner, that's the neighbor, sorry, that's too close, across the road right here. There's another single family dwelling here and another one there, but these two are outside the buffer zone. So technically there's only one dwelling that's within the buffer zone, and it's this one here right across the road. So if I go back to my other addition right here. So when we calculate these MDS calculations, what we do is we enter what's existing and we enter what's proposed. So we enter these two things. It gives us four numbers basically. So based on these four numbers, we then look at the property to see if it complies with all these four. If it does comply with all the four numbers, we don't even have to apply for minor variance or zoning or whatever. In this case here, so the four numbers, it gives you the distance from a type A land use, so from a neighboring dwelling, from type B land use, which would be like a subdivision or a village or a town or something like that. It gives you the distance it has to be from the nearest lot line, and it also gives you the distance it has to be from the nearest road allowance. So in this case, it's the road at the front. So Doug's addition, it complies, well, of course, land B doesn't really apply because there's none around. It complies with the lot lines and with the front road. It only does not comply with the front neighbor. So that's why we're applying right here. The nutrient units, so the actual animals based on the nutrient management strategy that Doug has, it will go from 45 to 70. So there's a little bit of an upgrade there in the livestock. So that's why the numbers are a little bit higher for nutrient units. Because we're adding a little bit of a nutrient units, this distance is calculated based on the fact that, well, yeah, the barn is already existing, but you're adding some nutrient units. So that's why it gives you that number, that 407 feet from the neighbor's dwelling. In this case, even though the barn here is already 410 from the neighbor up front, we still have to apply for the minor variance, because what that number tells us is that this new addition here, technically, if we want to follow these distance, should be, even though this is too close, this new addition should be built farther. So you measure from the actual new wall you're building. So if the addition is being built here, well, we measure from this point here. So we could avoid, in some cases, we can avoid the minor variance. In this case, as I have explained in my report right here, it's the most efficient location to put the addition because there's a manure pit. In this case, the manure pit is not being altered. It's big enough. It's located on the southwest corner. So as you can see right here, so we can't really do any addition here. And just to the front here, the farmhouse, well, it's not on our drawing here, but the actual single family dwelling, the farmhouse is here. So the most efficient, the most, I guess, useful way to do the addition is to go on this side here. So that's why we have this this proposed addition that's being built on this side of the barn. Again, he will need a building permit. I explained in my report here. So basically, what these like when you have the numbers, when they're too close, the implementation guideline, I believe it's number 43. So it says that the MDS setbacks should not be reduced except in limited site-specific circumstances that meet the intent of the MDS document. So in this case, it meets the intent because it's a proposed addition, same use as the existing. If it's deemed appropriate by the municipality, the process by which a reduction to an MDS2 may be considered would be through a minor variance. So it specifically gives you a guideline that says, if you're too close to if you can't respect one of these setbacks, but it's deemed appropriate and desirable, and it meets the intent of the official plan, of the zoning bylaw, of this MDS document. If the owner has, in this case, Doug has one, if he has an updated nutrient management strategy that also complies with UMAFRA, the way to do these kind of application is through minor variance. So that's why we're applying for this here. Again, the 4 tests, so I kind of already started on that. So in this case here, the lands are, I'll just go to my next slide. Yeah, there you go. So here, this is all North Glengarry, and everything that's white, so pretty much everything in your screen is designated agricultural. So all the surrounding areas are all agricultural. As you can see in the site plan, there's a few properties across the road that are they're still designated in zone agricultural, but they're being used for residential. But most of the area are either like livestock facilities, fields, rural dwellings. So it does meet the intent of the official plan. Second, comply with the intent of the zoning bylaw. So again here, we've got a little bit of a floodplain here around the waters here, but besides that, all the blue that you see is all our zoning layer for agricultural. So again, as you can see, it's all agricultural all over the place. There's actually another big livestock facility just across the road here. So it does match the intent of the zoning bylaw. Number 3, deemed suitable and desirable. Well, yes, in this case it is, because the fact here, the fact that there's already an existing livestock facility and it's already at 410 feet from the neighbor, it means that, yes, it does affect the neighbors, but not dramatically, as the situation is already existing. So that the MDS does take that into consideration, but it still gave us a number that's higher than what we are proposing here. But it's still deemed desirable and suitable for the area. And is it considered minor in nature? In this case, yes, it was deemed minor in nature. The reduction of 97 feet, it represents a reduction of 19%, but then again, as I mentioned, it's for a situation that's already existing. UMAFRA already approved the nutrient management strategy for the addition, and it matches all the OP and the zoning. So it is deemed minor in nature. So last slide. Planning staff's in the opinion that the request for minor variance can be considered minor in nature, desirable, appropriate, meets the intent of bylaw and OP. Recommendation, it is the recommendation of the planning department that the Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application MV 12-2021 as submitted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jacob, I know Laura and her family have been farming for decades, so I have no concerns about anything that goes on there. And I know the 2 that are out of the buffer zone, I'm pretty sure they'll be okay with this, but I'm just curious. I haven't been able to get a hold of that neighbor that is too close. Have you heard from them, or is there any issues?
We advertised as required in the Planning Act, and we did not receive any comments either for or against by either of the neighbors. So no comments whatsoever.
Perfect.
But sorry, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Kivitz did talk to all of his neighbors, okay, just to give them the heads up, but we did not receive any comments. No.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none.
Mr. Kivitz has his hand up there.
Oh, I can't see it. Sorry.
Oh.
Mr. Kivitz, go ahead.
Yes, hello. I have spoke. Sorry, I'm on my cell phone now, so that's why. Hopefully, everybody can hear me.
Yes.
I have the owner across the street is Dean McGilvery, and he has the house rented. He lives up he farms up the road on Lagan Road. I have spoken to him, and he's known about this meeting. And I've spoken to him prior to the meeting, and he has absolutely no concerns whatsoever on it and everything. And the other neighbor is, well, that's still on the side, is my father-in-law, so he doesn't have a problem.
So he had to agree then.
Yes.
Perfect. That's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kivitz.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And I have a motion moved by, change that to Councillor Massey. Seconded by Councillor Wensink. There being no further business to discuss, the Committee of Adjustment hearing was adjourned at 7:01 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Good job, Jacob. You're only 1 minute late tonight, so. Okay, we will switch over to our council meeting. Okay, once again, good evening, everyone. Welcome to members of the public, staff, and council. And I will call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, I have a motion to accept the agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, could I add an item, please? Is it just a discussion on the county's Main Street traffic? Could we have that? Just add that to the agenda, please.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Manley, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the agenda of the regular meeting of council on Monday, June 14th, 2021. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. There are none opposed. Okay, moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes, the regular meeting of council, May 25th, 2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Noble, that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Regular meeting of council, May 25th, 2021. Any questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to delegations. We have the 2020 audited consolidated financial statements, and they will be presented by Ken Fraser from Welch LLP. Welcome, Ken.
Oh, good evening. Hope everyone is well, surviving this COVID. I'm going to, so basically I have two documents. One is the draft financial statements. Hopefully you've all taken a look at it. And the second is our presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Hopefully, can you see the financial statement? So, you know, this is a document that we'll be reviewing, but I'll be doing it through my presentation. If there's any questions at any point in time, please feel free to ask. So here's the presentation. So basically the audit, we've completed the audit. There's only two items left to finish it off. One is approval of the financial statements by council, which will hopefully take place tonight. And second is receipt of the representation letter to be signed by the CIO and the treasurer. That's kind of a formality, but we still need that for our financial statement files. The financials that were distributed have the draft stamp on it. That's just our common practice till the statements are approved by council. So in the draft financial statements on page 2 and 3 is our independent auditor's report. As in past years, it's still a qualified audit opinion. I know Sarah worked hard to try to get a confirmation from the insurance company related to the possible receipts from them for the tax irregularities in past years. Fortunately, they did not want to confirm anything, so we issued our standard qualified opinion. It doesn't mean that it's incorrect, just means that we weren't able to obtain the sufficient audit evidence to confirm the amount. On page 4, the financials is the statement of financial position. This lists the financial assets, liabilities, non-financial assets, and the accumulated surplus. Financial assets, which comprise of cash, property taxes receivable, and accounts receivable, total $7,772,446 at December 31st, 2020. Financial liabilities includes accounts payable, municipal debt, provision for landfill closure costs, and employee benefits payable, $13,803,909. So net financial liabilities at year-end 2020, $6,031,463. Non-financial assets, that includes all the tangible capital assets, the roads, buildings, waterworks, sewer, equipment, etc. At the net book value for accounting purposes, $77,103,802. So our accumulated surplus for the end of 2020 is $71,072,339, an increase of approximately $3.3 million. Turning to page 5, the statement of operations. It shows all the operating revenues and expenditures. Operating revenues for 2020, $14,178,599, decrease of about $423,000 from the year before, primarily in recreation, which is to be expected since everything was closed. Also, interest on taxes was down by about $100,000 because the township did give some relief on taxes. Operating expenditures, $13,699,126, also down about $508,000 from the year before, primarily in recreation as well. So net ended up with a net operating surplus of $509,473 compared to $424,400 for the year before. So even with the difficult year, we still managed to get a surplus. Capital revenues and other, for PSAP purposes, any grants, capital grants received by the township, we have to record as revenue, while the offsetting expense is recorded as a tangible capital asset. So we try to segregate it out. Capital revenues and other, $2,784,038. So the annual surplus for the year ended 2020, $3,293,511. I'm just going to go over some of the notes. I'm not going to read all the notes. More for your information. Note 8 has all the tangible capital assets broken down by all the categories. There was a little over 7.4 million in capital asset additions in the year, primarily almost 5 million in water and sewer additions, 1.4 million in road additions, and there was various other equipment, including a pumper truck. Note 9 on page 13 is municipal debt. There was only one new loan in the year. That was $430,000 for the pumper truck. Note 10 on page 14 gives us a breakdown of all the accumulated surplus. basically into various categories. Largest increase is the amount invested in tangible capital assets, because the township has put lots of money into its fixed assets. And note 16 on page 18, it gives a breakdown of the expenses by object. If you do look at it, you'll see primarily all the expenses went down in the year, except for interest and amortization. So the township did cut back its expenses with the difficult year it had with COVID. Are there any, I know I went over it quick, are there any questions?
Any questions from anyone at this point? Councillor Manley.
Yeah, just going back to that previous slide, Ken, you talked about the cap. Maybe can you pull that up again? Just
sure. You want the one for the capital assets?
I think so. I believe so.
Let me try. I'll try sharing this again. So you want oops, sorry. Is it this one, or you want the actual financial statement?
Oh, that's fine right there. So the capital revenues line, second from the bottom. I know that's a substantial difference between 2020 and 2019. Is that because of funds we received for the Maxwell Water Project?
Yes, that's 2019. Correct. So basically, 2019 was all Maxwell Water Project. 2020, there was about $2 million that was still received for the Maxwell Water Project, and there was about $680,000 that was received for road work and other capital projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments at this point? Seeing none. Ken, is that you have more to go?
No, that's basically it. It was the audit went very well this year. Went a lot quicker. I think last year we presented in October, so we're very further ahead than last year. So administration did a very good job. We had issues with the drains receivables in the past that seemed to be all cleaned up. So we just want to thank administration for their hard work and getting the information to us and in a quick manner.
That's great. Well, thank you, Ken, for your presentation tonight. And do you want us to pass that motion now, or do you want to?
It's up to you, as long as we can get a resolution that the financial statements are approved by council.
I'll just ask if we can get out of the screen. Kim, you're okay with us passing that right now?
I didn't think we were allowed to pass resolutions on a...
Well, we're moving into the next one anyways, when we have done it in the past. But it's fine.
I have it as part of my report, so it's up to you, but I didn't think we were allowed to pass a motion on a presentation.
Okay, moving into staff reports, administrative department, award of development charges, background study. I have a motion moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry award the request for proposal for development charges study to Watson and Associates in the amount of $40,567 to be funded by the Working Fund Reserve. Okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report to council this evening is a result of the development charges RFP that we put out. So we did only receive one response, but I do have to tell council that Watson Associates is one of the best in this business. When I reviewed the RFP, they've done over 285 of these, as well as other different municipal studies as well. So certainly they're well-versed in the development charges background studies, as well as developing the bylaws. And there have been some significant changes to the legislation when it comes to DCs in the last couple of years. And Watson certainly did highlight those in the RFP to make sure that we're complying with them as we move forward on this project. So there was no budget for this in the 2021 budget. Because we weren't really sure how much it would cost. However, We are asking that it come from the working fund reserve. Usually when you do the DC study and the bylaw, you then put forth money aside through your DCs over the years to pay then for your next study. So certainly this will be a one-time shot that we'll have to do it through the working fund reserve. And it would have normally been funded already through the operating budget. So it's not really too much of a change that we'll do that. So certainly if any council has any questions, I can answer them, but it is a simple report this evening.
Okay, and what is the time frame for getting this done?
So we will have a kickoff meeting probably next week or the week after, Mr. Mayor. And so I'll be speaking to the consultant at that time because they have had a longer time frame for completion of the study. So I think it's the end of this year. I'd like to see that accelerated if we can, because I think we're all sort of wanting to get this going. So when we start to go through and they start to look at what we have for them to review, however, there are some stipulations around timelines in the legislation with some public consultation that has to happen. So I just want to make sure that we obviously comply with that. But I'll be bringing back a report once I meet with the consultant to council to let you know how that's going to go out. So because I wouldn't want it to be the end of the year. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sarah, what is that the amount that was put forward by the consultant group? Is that in your opinion, is that about approximate what you would have expected it to be, or?
Yeah, so I sort of thought in my head it would be around 35,000 to 40,000, but I wasn't sure. It depends on the size of the municipality also. So they have to review all of our different plans. So they'll review the asset management plan, as well as the official plan and look at the growth of Alexandria and other settlement areas, as well as the township as a whole. So I'm assuming that they based it off looking at all that information. Depends on the size of the municipality and what you can afford. Usually they'll look at that too. Any study though that I've seen lately with any of the local municipalities here, whether it be service delivery review or any other reviews, they're in the neighborhood of around 30,000 to 50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to Community Services Department, new CIP application 36 McDougall Street East in Alexandria. I have a motion moved by Councillor Manley, seconded by Councillor Madden, that the Council for the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report CS 2021-15. That Council approves the Community Improvement Plan project at 36 McDougall Street East, Alexandria, Ontario, as submitted by Ron Edwards, signing authority for 277-6808 Ontario Inc. Atlantic Pub and Eatery. Program B, Building Improvement Plan Grant, representing a matching grant of 50% up to a maximum of $7,500. Program C, Commercial Awning Grant, representing a matching grant of 50% up to a maximum of $1,261.50. And Program G, Municipal Loan Program, with a maximum of $10,000. Total grants, $8,761.50. Total loan, $10,000. Welcome in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as Mr. Mayor mentioned, this is the Atlantic Pub and Eatery. As you know, that building changed ownership about a year or so ago, just prior to COVID. And they are actually undergoing some work. Some of it, some of the work that's been done in the past was done under the Regional Incentives Program, but the signage that was put on the building was done under the municipality's CIP. They are now applying for the Program B, Program C, and Program G of our CIP to do some brickwork on 2 facades, to do some painting also on the adjacent building on the north side and the east side, and as well as adding a new awning on the east side of the building. You have the breakdown that we received, the quotes from the contractors, on the second page of the report. And you also have some current pictures of the property showing the new balcony that was subsidized under the Regional Incentives Program. And unfortunately, the pictures don't show the installation of the new sign. It was just installed last week, and these were taken prior to that. You also have a design of the property, what it's proposed to be looking like at the end of the renovations. And you have the quotes for the commercial awning on the following page, showing you the location of the awning, which is basically on an outside bar patio area. So this information was actually proposed to the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee meeting at their June 7th and was well received by the committee. And we propose that council does approve this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Okay, moving on to repeal of CIP application 124-126 Main Street, South Alexandria, Ontario. I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Wensink, that the Council for the Township of North Glengarry receive staff report CS 2021-16. The Council rescinds resolution number 3, adopted on November 12, 2019, approving the Community Improvement Plan project at 124-126 Main Street South in Alexandria, Ontario, as submitted by the applicants Kevin Van Den Oudelaar and Stephen Van Den Oudelaar, and that council authorizes the transfer of the total grant amount of $5,067.05 allocated to this project to the 2021 CIP budget for traceability and in order to be reallocated to the working reserves at the end of the year. Anne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a bit of housekeeping. As council knows, this property changed ownership, and the previous owners had started some of the renovations under Program B, and it was basically reinstating a new roof, a tin roof, and actually work on some of the balcony. The work was not completed though, and we did speak with the previous owners to see if they had an agreement with the new owners to complete that work. There was no agreement. Therefore, the previous owner can't come back and receive the funding because the project is considered incomplete. We are, by the way, speaking with the new owners of the property to see if there's a desire there for them to apply for the CIP in order to restore the missing elements of the balcony under Program B. And we'll be coming back to council with a CIP application if they decide to do that. But in the meantime, the funds were allocated to the CIP project, specifically to this property. And in order for us to be able to ensure that the funds clearly returned back to the municipality, we have to rescind the resolution that was passed by council on the November 12th, 2019 meeting. So basically this is a bit of housekeeping, and it is definitely for the traceability of the funding. And we do report this funding or any outstanding funding under the FIR. So it's important that staff keeps track of these amounts and that we do rescind the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moving on to Treasury Department 2020 audited financial statements. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wensink to change the seconder, seconded by Councillor Noble. That the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the 2020 audited consolidated financial statements as presented by Ken Fraser of Welch LLP, Chartered Professional Accountants, at Open Council, June 14th, 2021. Okay, are there any questions on this? I mean, it's self-explanatory. We just had that delegation. Are there any questions or comments?
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. I was under the impression that we couldn't pass a resolution under a delegation, so that's my fault for bringing the report forward.
Nope, that's fine.
I just wanted to note one thing on the financial statements on page 19. Tax arrears in 2016 were 50%. We're now down to 28. So we are making progress there. So I'm very pleased about that.
That's good news. Perfect. Thank you. Any further questions or comments for the treasurer? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Planning, Building and Bylaw Enforcement Department, Zoning Bylaw Amendment number Z09-2021. Okay, sorry, I think I've messed up my...
No. 09/2021.
Yep, I just can't find the motion. Oh. Wow. Okay, go ahead, Jacob. I'll find the motion.
That's good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I will share my screen because I also I want to discuss quickly what I have sent you last week. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I think we're good. You can see that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So the second slide. Okay. All right. So before I like for this is council meeting, we already saw that application at the public meeting of planning. So I'm just going to do a quick little wrap up of that zoning application after. But before we do, as I explained quickly last week, I just want to explain quickly what the difference is between the densities and the residential zoning. Because there were some questions at the meeting. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing and when we're doing it. So basically on this table that you see here, at the top, you have the 4 residential densities that we have in our zoning bylaw. So these residential densities are only can only be found within the urban settlement area. So in North Glengarry, that would only be in the village or former village of Maxville and town of Alexandria. So R1, R2, R3, R4 are only in these 2 villages. You will not find the densities elsewhere, like Greenfield, Glen Robertson, Dalkeith, Apple Hill, Dominionville. The residential designation over there is called residential hamlet. So it doesn't really have a density. The reason for that is simply because it does the main reason it doesn't have the municipal services. So within Maxville and Alexandria, you will find these here when it's residential, R1, R2, R3, R4. So I guess the first thing we have to know is that the difference between a minor variance and a zoning bylaw in the case of residential densities, when we apply, like this case here for George, we applied for a zoning amendment. So basically, we apply for a zoning amendment when we want to change the permitted use up here. Okay, so what you see in pink up here, permitted use. So R1, you can only have a single family dwelling, group home, or an accessory apartment. So an accessory apartment is an apartment that you do in an existing single family dwelling. So it's not a duplex, it's not a semi-detached, it's an accessory apartment that you create, that you build. It's got a side door, it doesn't look like a duplex, it doesn't look like a semi-detached, it looks like a single family dwelling with a side door that has an accessory apartment. So your building has to be there already. So that's the excess apartment here. R2, you can have basically a duplex or a semi-detached. In R3, you can have a row house with eight dwellings per building. In R4, you can have apartment buildings or condominiums. And as you can see, when let's say you have an R3, well, if you have R3, you can do any of the R2, any of the R1. If you have an R2, you can do any of the R1. So basically, if you have an R4 property, you can still build a single family dwelling home. But if you have an R1, you cannot bump up. You have to do a zoning amendment, right? So the reason why R1, R2, R3 are included in R4 is specifically because, let's say someone has an R4, but he just wants to build a house. Well, you don't need to do a zoning amendment to reduce your density. You're allowed to do it. So it's just like it would be redundant to ask for a reduction in density. So that's why they're all included within each other. So every time we deal with, like this case here, we want to deal with the actual use of the property. That's when we talk about zoning amendment. Everything else in the yellow here, this is all, when someone wants to change that or cannot meet one of these, this is all when we have minor variances. Okay, so all in the yellow there, if you can't meet that, you will not apply for a zoning amendment, you will apply for a minor variance. So let's say we're looking at R1 here. Well, if someone has an R1 property, he has to, he's limited to a single family dwelling or a group home, and he has to respect all of these here. So lot frontage, front yard, interior side, rear yard, blah, blah. He has to meet all of these requirements. If he cannot meet one or more than one, he will apply for a minor variance. And same thing, if you have an R3 and you go through that, if you cannot meet one of the yellow ones, you will have to apply for a minor variance. If you have an R3 property and you want to build a single family dwelling, so you have an R3, but you want to use your property as an R1. Well, in this case, we go back here and you have to follow all of these requirements here. So if you have an R3 and you're proposing to build a single family dwelling, so as you can see here in R3, the interior side yard here is 3 meters. Oh, well, that's not it's a little bit more complicated. Let's use with this one here. So front yard. If you have a single family dwelling on an R3, well, the front yard, if you're building a row house, is 7.5. But if you're in R3 and you want to build a single family dwelling, you go to R1 and it's only 6 meters here. So these, like this column here applies to these uses here. This column here applied to this use there. So that's why when you have someone like, I'll give that example because we just did it there. We did a zoning amendment for Ron Théoret. So Ron, we changed his zoning. So I think we went from R1 to R3, I believe, for the 5-plex. So we went from R1 to R3. So Ron knew exactly what he wanted to do. He knew where the building was going to be. He knew how many units he wanted to have. He knew everything. So when you do a zoning amendment, when you want to upgrade the density, and you know that one of these here is not going to comply, you're allowed to include that in your zoning amendment. So because you're doing a bigger change, you're changing the use of the property, you're allowed to make your new proposed building to comply right away with your zoning amendment. So that's why sometimes we want to change both the zoning and we also want to reduce the front yard because we're allowed to do that. We include it in the zoning bylaw amendment. So we just do one application. The one we're doing here today, we're just changing the use. So basically we're just changing from R1, we're going to R2, but the owner does not know yet what exactly he wants to put on the property. But when he brings his plans, if he does not comply with one of these here, he will have to come back to us and apply for a minor variance. So that's like saying, all of these here, like all of the yellow ones here, could be considered minor in nature. Okay, so they're considered minor in nature because you're only changing one certain requirements within the permitted use. If it's desirable and appropriate for the area, so here it's 35%. If you're proposing 40%, it's probably still desirable and appropriate. If you're proposing 95%, it might not be desirable and appropriate. So that's why it can't be considered minor in nature anymore. So that's why in this case, we would probably do a zoning amendment because it's too big. It's not considered minor in nature anymore. So that's why I just wanted to explain the difference between the two, where you have the change in the use up here when we do a zoning amendment, and then you have to follow all of these here after that. So if you can't, you'll have to do a minor variance, even though you change the zoning. So it's completely two different things. And as you know, in North Glengarry's case, the zoning bylaw amendment is presented to council. In other townships, all of these here, so minor variances, are presented to the Committee of Adjustment. In our case, it's the same people, but it's not always the case. So it's not up to this, like not usually, but sometimes in other townships, it's not the same people who will allow a change in the use, a change in the land use, because this is probably a bigger change. It affects a lot more than the people who are allowing for a reduction from 7.5 to 7.2, basically. It's just one retirement. It can easily be considered minor in nature. So that's why it's the Committee of Adjustment who will decide that. So that's the difference between the two. I just wanted to go quickly over that. I don't know if you have questions before I go into my quick presentation there.
Are there any questions from members of council? Okay, not seeing any. I'll read the motion for coming up. I have a motion moved by Councillor Manley, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Township of North Glengarry adopt zoning bylaw Z09-2021, and that bylaw Z09-2021 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted in open council this 14th day of June 2021. Go ahead, Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I'll just do that quickly just to refresh your memory. It was presented on May 25th to the public meeting of planning. The owner is George Chavadrous. Location is on Front Street. So just for those of you who know a little bit more Alexandria, these are the properties that were previously owned by Stéphane Bouchard. The OP designation, urban settlement area, so it's within Alexandria, and the zoning in this case right now, it's residential first density. So it's right there. You have Giant Tiger right here, and this is not AW, but Dairy Queen right here. And we're talking about this property right here. All right. So the purpose of the application in this case was to rezone the property from residential first density to residential second density to permit the potential construction of a semi-detached dwelling or a duplex. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just yeah, quick note, we did not receive any comments since the other meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments at this point on this application? Councillor Manley.
Just to reiterate what was said before, the owner of the property, Jacob, is well aware that that when this goes for a minor variance, if the duplex doesn't fit that property and it has to have a minor variance, that may not pass. The owner is aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did explain, and again, to his defense, the reason why he did not provide plans at this point, like you're gonna pay at least a few $1,000s for plans. So
yeah, sure.
He did not want to spend the money to do the plans and come back to council, and council says, no, you can't do the change. So he just spent all that money for nothing. So yeah, he's full. We did explain to him. He did provide us with a quick example of what he wanted, but it wasn't precise enough for me to put it in the presentation here because it wasn't compliant. So completely useless to put that in there, but he's fully aware that he may have to apply for a minor variance. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to zoning bylaw amendment Z11-2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry adopt zoning bylaw Z11-2021 and that bylaw Z11-2021 be read a first, second, and third time and act in open council 14th day of June 2021. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I will just do the same thing, a quick little wrap up here. Here we go. We're good?
Yep.
Perfect. So the owner for this one, so just Wilco Finger, this is a zoning amendment, part of a severance condition. So he did a severance and he had to do a zoning amendment for the severance. So that's why we're doing this zoning here. Location 21370 Brody Road in Dalkeith. OP designation is agricultural resource lands and the zoning is general agricultural. This is the property here. I think I did put the other one. Why? So this is the property right here. So as you remember, the property line will come here and will cut through these buildings here and then back here and route like that. So we'll have these two buildings here and the concrete pad that's there that will remain on the property with the dwelling, and we'll have this ag storage here, that will remain with the agricultural property. So that's, again, the line, it's a flag lot here that you're gonna have, and then boo boo going back up here. One of the questions that was asked, I believe by Councillor Manley, is access on the field. There's already many access on the fields via other fields. So the farmer will probably not even come through the road here. He'll cut through other fields that he owns in the surrounding areas. But there's still an area at the corner here that he can access his field. So the residential entrance here will not be used by the farmers. It will not be a shared entrance. It's solely going to be used for the dwelling. So that was one of the questions. And again here, so I'll just go through that quickly. So the severed portion will be rezoned from general ag to ag 194 to prohibit agricultural use, to acknowledge the minimum in lot frontage, to acknowledge the minimum rear yard, to acknowledge the minimum rear yard for the other building, and to acknowledge the minimum interior side for the same shed there. And again, same thing for the retain. So that's the farmland. So to rezone from general ag to special ag 193, sorry, to prohibit residential dwellings, so no more house on the property, and to acknowledge the minimum required interior yard for the first ag storage there to be made compliant. And that's the property, and yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we did not receive any comments either for that one.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councilor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jacob, the last picture that you had was the most clear, and it's a big picture question. It's not about this particular one. It's just, are we still working on trying to limit some of these lollipop severances? Because that one, for example, is going to be pretty brutal with the line going right through the yard of all the other buildings. So whoever lives in the house, I mean, it's great if they're allowed to walk around the yard and there's no issues, but that's going to be a severe severance in the middle of a yard. And then someday when that person leaves and the next person comes in, so are you guys able to work on these with the new people? Are we going to keep seeing these in the future?
We definitely will, for sure. It's not like when we get these applications, we, as you know, the counties are the approval authority, so we can't really say no. We have to request for the minimum lot acreage. In this case, it's, as you mentioned, it's a little bit different because yeah, the property line is right in between the two buildings, and a good thing there's a fair enough distance in there, because like if you have a building that's way too close to a property line, you have to start going with like firewalls and stuff like that because you're too close to the property line, right? So we're trying definitely to avoid that stuff, but when it's when the buildings are agricultural buildings, you do not have to comply with some of these spatial separations. So we're trying to avoid major issues, but we don't, at the end of the day, we don't decide if yes or no they should go through. They do request for minimum acreage, and yeah, to answer your question, we're definitely gonna see them again for sure. Yeah.
So just to go a little bit further, Councillor Noble, that the Deputy Mayor and I are planning to meet with Peter Young, the new, and to discuss this and see if we can maybe, we're never going to not see them, but we're hoping that maybe we can expand the boundaries a little bit so that it makes these properties a little bit more desirable. So we're going to continue to look into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did bring it up when I met with Pete also, and like it all comes down from the province, right? And what they say is that if we allow for, let's say, 1 or 2 additional acres for the severance, and we do that for 300 severance a year, well, that's about 500 acres of agricultural land that's not farmable anymore. So that's usually the answer we're getting. That's the answer we're getting. So yeah, hopefully you can figure something out with Pete.
Unfortunately, some of the decisions that are made are, you know, and I've seen it at a couple of severances, you know, they've taken out a machine shed.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You know, what does that have to do with farming? Why would you not include that machine shed as part of that? It's not accessible by the farmer at all. So those are the kinds of things that I think that need to be looked at. Natural, you know, sometimes there's a cluster of trees right there. Well, why is that not included as part of the severance and it stays in line? Anyways, it's just something that we need to assess. Councillor Noble.
And I think, thank you, Mr. Mayor, I think we just have to remind the province, AKA Toronto, that for every mall and parking garage that they build in what was once an ag community, and I hear this is the argument I get whenever I bring up clear cutting, Cornwall, Hawkesbury. So the argument that's our 1 acre severance that's going to allow someone to have a long laneway or a machinery shed does not compete with what every urban community paves in a week or a month. So you have to remind province that I think farmers know what they're doing. They know what is necessary, and no one's asking for a severance to be 20 acres so they could have a big lawn. They need severances to make sense.
Councilor Noble, do you want me to sing "We Paved Paradise" and put up a parking?
Sure.
I've got it all set up here.
No more Caroline.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you, Jacob. Okay, we have items under the consent agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives the items from the consent agenda for information purposes only. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay, and under new business, Councillor Massey, you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back in March, I believe, or early April, we had a report from the counties on regarding the Main Street project and the big truck traffic that were and I believe that they had mentioned that they were going to start monitoring or trying to cut off the trucks so they don't use Main Street.
That will happen. Yes, that'll happen later this summer. But only trucks that are going straight through, not trucks that have business in Alexandria.
No, I know that, but I think the date was early June. I think it was mentioned at that presentation. So, and I did have somebody stopped in at the mail this morning and said that what's going on with the trucks. I thought they were going to ban them, but anyways, I just like it'd be nice to have them in during the summer instead of the. Anyways,
according to a text or a tweet I saw today, it says late summer. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you're right, Jacques. I'm pretty sure that they said.
Yeah. They did say June 1st.
June 1st, yeah.
Everybody was under the assumption. Go ahead, Councillor Madden.
So if you remember when Ben gave us the presentation, he said this year will be a little bit later. Every year after this, it's going to be June 1st. They're doing some repaving on 45 on the bypass. So he said this year will be implemented as soon as that work is done. I've talked to him or emailed him about some other stuff, and he does have signs on order. It is ready to go. You see that the work has started on 45. So I don't know what their timeline is to finish that, but it looks like everything's ramping up pretty good. So hopefully within the next month, I'd love to say, but don't quote me on it. But it will be done this year as soon as they can. But every year after this, it will be June 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Madden, if we were in a live council meeting, I would go over and give you a gold star. So good job.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that.
Okay, notice of motion. Next regular public meeting of council is Monday, June 28th at 7 p.m. There is no closed session this evening. Confirming bylaw, I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Wensink. The Council of the Township of North Glengarry received bylaw 24-2021, and that council adopt bylaw 24-2021 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with by resolution, that bylaw 24-2021 be read a second, third, and enacted in open council this 14th day of June 2021. Any questions on the confirming bylaw? All those in favor? Motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wensink, seconded by Councillor Massey. There being no further business to discuss, the meeting was adjourned at 7:47 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight in the public, and thank you to staff and all members of council. And again, only one thing to say, go Habs go. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.